how do we in our previous session we understood regarding the structure that we basically create for a class, and how do we declare it, we'll also see in our session today. So first thing that we have just gone through is to check again, like do a recap for how do we what is the syntax that we have in terms of declaration of a class. And then we'll go through again to declare one simple class where we'll try to create some other things. So how do we start it with? The thing is that started. Okay. The thing is that the class have been introduced in 2015. Class have been basically introduced in 2015 inside the JavaScript and TypeScript. Before that, there was no concept of class. Everything as it is basically a functional programming language. And how, when do we create a class? Class we basically create for object-oriented programming language. Okay, so it has also given a provision to create a class in terms of both JavaScript and TypeScript. And how do we create a class? Class, it's simple. You have to start it with a class keyword followed by a class name. And inside the curly braces, everything you have to write it. Everything means basically class consists of methods and properties. Properties and methods. What is properties? Properties are a variable that we declare, and methods are functions that we generally declare. In terms of both JavaScript and TypeScript, outside of the class, we declare a variable by using either a var, let, or const keyword. And inside the class, we declare a property without using any kind of keyword. So simply property name, and you can also provide the data type over here. Again, property name and data type. You can also declare a properties which is private in nature. That means something. So let's say you have some kind of skill, right? Everyone will have some or other things which will be only available with you, right? There'll be some or other things for every person in the world will be a unique to them. Will definitely be a unique to them, and that is known as a private things or a private variables or a private method to a class. Okay, that means only belongs to that particular class, only belongs to that particular person or human being. That is known as cannot be inherited. That means cannot be used anywhere, is known as a private to this particular class. And how do we create that? By using a private keyword. If you do not define a private keyword, that means that is ultimately a by default a public keyword in nature. By default a public variables or public property. Okay, now we inside the class we can create different kinds of inside the class we can basically create a different kinds of properties or method. Can be a static properties and can be a non-static as well. What is static property? Something that belongs to the class, not to the instance. Something which belongs to the class and not to the instance will be a will be a static property. Okay, and something that we do not write by using a static keyword is known as a non-static keyword. That means non-static property, and that non-static property will belongs to the instance of the class. Instance, that means belongs to the object. That means you will only be able to access those property using the um, the object, whereas static keyword or static method that you have written inside the classes, you will be able to use it inside by using the class name. Okay, till now I hope like every concept that we have gone through is clear. Okay, and now we can see like one constructor. So how do we create a constructor? How do we create a constructor in JavaScript and TypeScript is by using constructor keyword over here. By using a constructor keyword over here. In terms of other programming language, if you are from a Java background, then it is something like you have to provide the name of similar name of the class name. But in terms of other program like JavaScript and TypeScript, we have a keyword known as a constructor to define a constructor function or constructor method. What is the use of constructor? Whenever you are trying to define any non-static keyword or non-static properties, non-static variables or properties, to initialize those variables inside the class, we take the help of a constructor over here. And how do we initialize is by using a this keyword. And whenever you create an object for this particular class, all the values that it is taking as an argument inside the constructor will get initialized at the time of creation of an object. Okay. And in the same way, however, we define the variable over here, we do not use the function keyword to define the function or method inside the class. You can simply define with a name, and then you can provide it with a parenthesis. And whenever you have a parenthesis for any kind of variable that you have defined, that will be ultimately considered as a function or method, along with the return type that you can provide over here. That is again an optional you should be aware of by now. And if you want to again create a static keyword, static function, then you can use a static keyword on that particular function. Okay. And how do you access the static keyword or a static function? Again, static variable or a static function simply by using the class name dot variable name or method name. Okay, so that is the basic use of a static keyword inside the for a variable or for a method. Now, how do we create an object for any class? The object creation is simple that we'll be using a new keyword. However, we utilize inside any other programming language, new keyword will help us in creating an object for a class followed by a class name. And if there are any kind of argument that are available inside the constructor, then those parameters we have to provide it over here. And as we are trying to create an object, so we know that we have understood a concept at the time of going through with an object that we have to store inside a variable. And that variable becomes the name of the object that you have created. So that we can start with, we can start inside the any of the variable that you can create either by using let, const, or whatever you need. And how do we access the value? Whenever you try to access a non-static variables or method, you can simply access by using object name dot non-static variable or non-static keyword. Or whenever you are trying to access a static method or a static variable over here, we can simply use a class name dot static keyword and static function name. Okay, let's define a class and then see it over here. How do we define it? Okay, let's create the similar things over here. However, we have gone through in our session today, like in terms of a syntax declaration. So how will we start it with a class? And then let's say I'll just give the name as a class name as employee over here. Okay, inside the curly braces, we have to provide all the properties and methods. Okay, so let's declare few of the properties over here. I'll declare the property. Inside this, I'll say it as, let's say, employee ID. Employee ID can be in the form of number over here. But if you make it as, let's say, let employee ID, it will throw us an error. It will simply throw us an error saying that let is not allowed. An unexpected token. A constructor, method, accessor, or properties was expected. That means it is saying that we do not have to define a properties or method by using their Earlier, however, we have defined it.
So Praveen, if we don't declare data type, that is fine, right?
If you do not declare,
If we don't declare data type along with the
yeah,
key,
yeah,
that is
I
fine, right?
was I was coming to that point. I'm not sure I'm able to hear your voice in a very lower. I'm not sure if it is having some problem with my system or how is it. Are others able to hear him properly?
Yes, Praveen, we can hear. Yes.
Okay, okay, then I believe I'll have to restart the system. Okay, so here there is nothing to define at all. If you want to define it, well and good. If you do not want to define it, that is also fine. So you can simply say it as, let's say, EMP name over here without having any data type. Okay, so either you can provide the data type or you can also do not want to provide. If you do not want to provide, that is well and good. Okay, and then you can, let's say, I'll declare a private variable, which I'll give the name as EMP age, which is employee age over here. Now you see all the other values, all the other variable that you have declared over here is in the black color, whereas this have been grayed out. Why? Because it says that it is a private to this particular class. Okay, as we have used a private. If you just remove this, you'll see that it is similar to the other one. Okay, how do we define a private variable? By simply using a private keyword over here. And then we can also do something like, let's say, employee salary. Okay, you can also do an employee salary. You can define the data type as well if you want to define it. Okay. And then if you want to also use a static keyword, static properties, then we can say it as, let's say, name, static name. Okay. And probably static means whenever you try to use a static, it should have also some kind of, let's say, company name. So I'll just say it as, let's say, ABCD is a company name for this particular C name. I'll also say it as a C name. That means a company name that we have defined, which is having a value as ABCD. ABCD is a company name. I've just defined some kind of static variable as well. Okay. Yes, Madhu. I'm not sure if it was by mistake. Okay.
Praveen,
And yes.
so we have to define means like if we are defining that something with that is static, so we need to declare it with that whatever we are defined, like you have defined the static C name equal to ABCD, whatever it is. So we have to define that means like ABCD, it is mandatory to
No,
give
no, you
or
can
we
define it
can.
later on as well. This is not mandatory.
Okay.
The writing the variable is writing the value for a variable is not mandatory over here. Okay.
Yeah, okay, Praveen. Thanks.
Okay. Now you can we have one more keyword that you can use it over here saying that read only. Okay. You can also define some variable which is having a name as read only. Let's say I'll say it as increased salary. So in this case, if you see the increased salary is just you cannot change the value of the variable. When you say
Praveen,
it
your
as a
voice
read
is
only,
not.
you cannot change the value of the variable later on.
We lost you in between, Praveen.
Audible now?
Yeah, now it's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just trying to switch from because I was not able to hear you people. So I was trying to switch from one mic to another mic. I hope it is better now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So read only is something which is read only property. Read only means read only. You cannot change it. You cannot edit it. You cannot update it. That is basically a read only. So let's say I'll also define, you can also define anywhere this read only property. Inside the constructor as well, you can define it because this is not a static. This is not a static variable. So inside the constructor also you can take the value, but I have just defined a value, which I'll show you that you will not be able to update this value later on. Okay, we have created few of the properties. Let's initialize these properties inside the constructor. I'll create it as a constructor, and inside this constructor, I'll take all the non-static keyword over here. Non-static properties that we have defined over here, which is employee name, employee ID, employee name. Employee salary. This one you can also take it inside this, but this you cannot take because this is an static in nature, and static does not belongs to the object, right? Whatever the property, whatever the parameter that you have to provide inside the at the time of calling, creating the object, only those property you have to take it as a argument over here inside the constructor. Okay. And how do you assign this? By simply saying it as, somehow I lost the suggestion that it was displaying earlier. Employee ID equals to EMP ID. You can also take the different name as well. You can also define the different name. You can also define it over here, say that let's say EID, and assign the value to EID over here. Okay. Again, the another one which is like this dot EMP name over here, which is equals to, let's say, ename. We have a EMP name. I'll just change it to ename in this case. Here as well, age and probably salary. So either you can take the same or you can also change the name as well. So MP age equals to age over here. And for other one that we have is this dot EMP salary, which is equals to salary over here. Okay, so what did we do is we have just initialized the value that we have taken or that we have initial and that we have declared over here at the class level.
Hello.
Okay. Okay, right? Everyone on the same page right now?
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah, I had a question.
Yes.
So, if we are defining the EID, ename, age, etc. in the constructor, first question is, it will not give an error if we are defining this dot emp ID is equals to EID. It's
No,
another
no,
name, right?
no. This is your variable name. This you have
Okay.
defined it over here. Should have to be the same name over here.
Okay. Okay.
This becomes your variable name. But this that you see is a value that you'll be getting at the time of creation of an object.
Okay. And uh, if I have to call this variable, then I'll use what? Emp ID or EID in that case?
That is what I'm saying. The left side part is your variable name. Right side is the value of the variable.
Value. Okay. Got it. Got it.
Okay. Left side part is your variable name. Whenever you have to call it, whatever you have declared over here, you have to call it with that name.
Okay. Got it.
Whatever your variable is, this one that you have declared just after declaration of a class.
Yeah.
Okay. And here inside the constructor, we are just initializing the value of the variable. And whatever you see inside the constructor as an argument, those are the value of the variable that you have defined. And what is the value of the variable? Variable is the left hand side one.
Okay.
even if you are providing the same name at that point of time also, your hand side of the equal symbol is your variable name, your property name. Always remember that this dot, whatever you have written, is your variable name. Okay, now let's create few methods over here, which will be again static and non-static, few of the methods. Okay, so I'll say it as, let's say, employee information. Example, employee information that I'm trying to get from a user. And let's say I'll just print it out so you can see it as this will return um, void. This will not return anything. I'll just print it inside this. Okay, and we can use it as, let's say, console.log employee ID over here, which is, how do we get this value? How do we call this? Call your property over here?
By using this keyword.
Right, exactly. So this dot emp ID. What is emp ID? The variable that you have declared over here. And how did you assign this value? Why are we trying to create with this dot emp? Because this will get assigned over here at the time of calling the object, creating an object. And whatever the value that you will be storing for the emp ID, that will also get reflected over here. Okay, in the same way, we can write it as, let's say, employee name. Employee name is this dot emp name. Again, let's say if you want to also get the employees age over here and employee salary. Let's say employee age, employee salary.
But where are we assigning the values to it though, right? Since we are defining.
Which value we are trying to assign?
When we're trying to print, right? Like, what is it going to print? That's what I'm thinking. Like.
Right, you'll come to know it within few minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so this is what the value that you are taking. This is what the value you are storing inside the variable, which is EID, ename, EAs, and eSalary is the value that you are storing inside the variable. And where will it come from? Where will it come from? Basically, it will come from the object that you will be creating over here, saying that what is the class name is an employee. And inside this, what are the things that you require to give? EID, ename, EAs, and eSalary. Let's say EID is 101. Ename is, let's say, John. Age is, let's say, 34. And salary is, let's say, 2 lakh rupees. Okay, and what happened in this case? Whatever the value that you have given over here, this will go and sit it inside the constructor. So this 101 will go inside EID. John will go inside ename. 34 will go inside eAge, and 2 lakh will go inside eSalary over here. And what it will happen at this point of time, this will go and say it as this dot emp ID equals to 101. For this one, it will go and say as this dot emp name equals to John over here. For again next, this will become this dot emp age equals to 34. And this will become saying that this dot emp salary, which is equals to 2 lakh rupees. Okay, this is how you are basically assigning the value of the variable that you have declared. And how are you assigning? Assigning by creating an object of a class. And as you have created an object, so you can store it inside a variable. Let's say it as emp. Okay, now still if you are confused, let's do one thing over here saying that emp dot let's say EID. When you say it as emp, what is emp over here? Is this one, and what is your name that you have defined is emp ID. So when you say it as, you'll get the value, whatever the value that you have assigned to a variable. When you go inside this, let's run it as by saying tsx
Praveen, please change the 71 and 72 line. This dot emp ID is there. You need to change that.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Line number 71 and 72, you are declaring age and salary, right? But you are calling the object is employee ID only.
Right, right. I'll change that. I'll change that.
Okay.
Right. So I'm just trying to show you this one, right? So this is how we basically assign the value to a variable inside the constructor. Understood, right? I think like one of our colleagues were trying to ask how do we assign the value. Does it answer your question? I believe like Sirisha or someone.
Yeah, yes, Praveen, yeah.
Okay, so this is how we basically assign the value. When you try to create an object, you'll have to assign the value. What you have to provide the parameter, whatever the argument that it is taking inside the constructor, and those value will be initialized in this way. And whenever you try to use this, your this.emp ID is 101, so it will also come over here, which is 101. Okay, because this will become the emp over here, whatever the object that you have created. Okay, now this is basically we have to change it over here. emp salary. So this became your employee information. And if you want to also print something which is a part of your static keyword, then you have to print it by using. How will you print this? You cannot print by using this dot cname. So see, this is throwing an error saying that cname is not available, does not exist on type employee, because it says that cname is a static in nature. If you just remove it static, see, it is able to identify because that becomes a part of object. But if you provide a static, that becomes a part of class. And whenever something is available to a class, you can simply use a class name dot properties. So simple, employee that you have created as a class dot property that you have given as a cname. Okay, so this is basically an object, a method that we have created. And how will you access this? Simple, emp is your an object, and then just call the method name that you are trying to call, which is employee information along with parentheses. Now at this point of time, you will see that it will print us all the value over here. Employee ID is 101. Name is emp name over here. Let's print it out again. Employee, again we have used emph. So now this time if you see, it is saying employee ID is 101, name is John, age is 34, and employee salary is something over here, which is 2 lakh. And what is this one? This is coming from the company name. Okay, so this is like static in nature. So employee company is this one. Employee company is this one, whatever the value that we have assigned it to. So employee ID is 101, name is John, age is 34, salary is this, and company is ABCD that we have assigned over here itself. Okay, and read only property that we see over here, you can also access this over here as well. So let's say console.log and then increased salary. Let's say increased salary. And then just call this value. How do we call this value? This is read only, but that is again a part of non-static keyword. So non-static keyword you can access by using this keyword. Okay, so this is also, you can see that the increased salary is 1 lakh that we have given over here. Okay, this is non-static method. Now let's
One put here. So this is a method or a function, the employee information.
both are same, method and function both are same.
So, but we did not use the function keyword, right?
Right, that is what I said over here as a part of writing the syntax. that we do not require to call a function whenever you try to define a function inside a class. You do not have to say it as a function. As soon as you provide the parenthesis over here, it will identify that you have declared a function.
Okay.
If you remove this and hover over on this, it says that this is basically a method that we have declared inside the employee class. Okay, so inside the class, you do not have to declare a function by using a function keyword.
Okay, got it. One more thing is like in Java, we generally pass the parameters in the while in the I mean while declaring a
Inside the
method,
function, you can
right?
also pass
Yeah.
it inside the function as well. You can pass it.
Okay.
You can pass, let's say, some value over here, which is username. And wherever you call this particular function, there you can try to get the username. So let's say username is abcd@gmail.com.
Then what
Okay,
is
and
the
if you
difference
want
between providing the variables in the constructor and passing it in the method or a function? We can
many
do all these
differences,
things.
you cannot do whatever you can do inside the constructor, you cannot do inside the normal function or normal method. Let's say you are trying to create a username as a locator, username, which is a part of the locator over here. Okay, which is a part of playwright locator. Now you have to initialize your username field over here. Let's say this dot username equals to some page, something over here, page dot, let's say locator, or some other values. Let's say example ABCD over here inside this. Okay, so you have basically declared a username which have some kind of locators.
Okay.
Okay, if you define this username over here as a locator, where will you basically write all the locators? Where will you provide this locator? At the time of calling this function, here you will provide the locator. But is
No,
that okay to provide the locator over here for multiple elements?
no.
We can have a multiple elements, right? Username,
Yeah.
password, submit button, any other things as well.
Yeah.
So how
Okay.
will you provide those things inside the function?
Yeah, got it.
So
Right?
for that,
So
we need
just
to
to
have a constructor, right? For
exactly
locators.
for that itself, we need to have a constructor to initialize the value so that you can initialize the value over here and you can use it anywhere, wherever you want to use inside any of the classes, any of the functions, any of the methods.
And this
Okay,
method, what I
got
see
it.
is a void, right? Which doesn't have a return type.
Right.
Okay.
So whenever you want to return something, you can simply say it as the return type over here. If you want to return something, you can return the you can return from the function anything over here.
But the syntax would be the same, right? If I have the return type, or it would be
Syntax will be
different.
same.
Syntax will be same.
Syntax
Okay.
will be same. You just have to say it as a return over here.
Okay.
Let's say you turn username. Okay, so this function will also return something. So you can store it inside a variable saying that a username equals to this. And you can print this particular value, which is username. This is useless that I'm trying to print
Okay.
over here, but just to
Okay.
show you that how does it work. So it has also printed abcd@gmail.com, whatever the username we have given over here.
Okay.
Okay.
But whatever it is, we need to create an object of that, right?
Yes.
Let
Yes.
emp is equal to. Without that,
Right.
we can't call all the parameters, right? Without creating an object.
Yes. And then if you also want to create a static function, you can use a static keyword over here. Okay, and then let's say I'll just print something inside this saying that, let's say, um, welcome to, and let's make it as a parameterized string. So by using a backtick, we can say it as welcome to so and so company. Welcome to um, what is the name of the company we have is employee, because that is static in nature. So employee.cname. And this is the company that we are working on. So I'll just say it as welcome to this particular company.
So if we
Just
declare the
static.
method as a static, right? Like, if you could go over, like, it means, what does it mean if we declare a method as a static, or whatever the
Right.
function
So
as static?
Right. So we are using a static keyword. You can also declare a function in terms of a static, and this will also belongs to the class, not to the object.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, if you try to access this particular variable and this particular method by using, let's say, um, um, object, you will not be able to find that there is a method, something known as greeting over here. You
Because it
cannot.
belongs
It
to
will,
class, right? It belongs to
right,
class.
because it says that property greeting does not exist on type employee. Did you mean access to static method, static member? So you have to use it by employee dot greeting as a method name. So you have to basically access. But in terms of a Java, it is allowed. You can access by using either class name or object. But in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript, it is strictly not allowed. You have to access static keyword and static method by using the class name. Again, if you try to execute this over here, you will see that this is basically returning us the similar value, which is welcome to ABCD company. Where is this ABCD company coming from? This is the value that it is coming from. Yes.
Praveen, another question I have, where do we use like, the functions, just the function without the class, which you taught us before, right? The function.
Where do we use the function without?
Just the function, like without the creating a class, just
So
with a
for
function
utility,
name.
whenever you have to create a utility function, you can define using a function keyword
Okay.
that
In
might
the
not be
frame.
available inside a class,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I was getting
But if
confused, like, when there is a need for creating a class and when we don't, right? Difference between the two.
right. So mostly when you follow something which is an framework manner, we'll be basically creating inside a class. But we also have to understand, because in terms of a programming, we'll have to create a function by using a function keyword. In terms
Okay.
of utility function, let's say if you do not want to create a class, you have to define it inside a file. So there will be using a welcome again a function keyword.
Okay. Mostly for our automation framework, we'll be creating a class, right? That's what
Right.
I'm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm, I think whosoever for the programmers, I think they would be mostly. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Pramil, you are trying to ask any question?
Yeah, Praveen. So can you please go a little bit up? Yeah. In this method, we have defined the return type as void, right? Suppose if I will not define any return type and still I am returning something to the method, that should be fine, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how does it accept over here, because we are trying to use a return. Okay, it is basically saying that any, so it has accepted a void as well, because we can probably it's accepted that okay, you probably might not give any kind of value as well. So even if you do not give anything, see, it is saying that it can basically return us any.
Okay.
Okay. So depending
And
on the value that you are trying to return over here, it will automatically accept. So let's say example, you say it as return this dot empid over here. Okay. Now in this case, you will see that it says that it is returning a number.
okay.
Okay. So it is not mandatory, and also probably will not be using those kind of return type inside the function
Okay.
that have been given by the TypeScript, but probably we may not be using that as well.
Okay. And one more question, like you have the line number 90, you have added console.log emp.empid, right?
Right.
So when you are executing this, file, it will not print at the empid. It should print right 101, right?
Exactly. It will, because we are referring the EMP ID, whatever the value for EMP ID will be, that will get printed over here.
But I think so that is not printed over
So
here
if you
in
see
terminal.
this one, it is printing 101 over here,
Okay, it's above. Okay. Okay.
right? So it is printing us 101 over here in this case.
Okay.
Fine.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this is This is how do we create a class, static properties, static method, and private method. Now we have accessed most of the things over here. You can access, let's try to access some other values. We have access employee ID. Let's access it over here. We have accessed it employee ID. Let's access the employee name as well. emp name. Let's access the emp age. emp emp dot emp salary, and then again do it as like, let's say emp dot emp age. But it is not saying that. It is saying that emp age is not acceptable. Okay, so we have added ID, name, salary. This will also accept, and this will also access. Let's access it over here, and then I'll go for emp age. So console.log emp age. I see it is throwing us an error saying that property emp age is private and only accessible within class employee. That means the property that you have declared, the properties or method that you have declared as a private, you cannot access outside of this particular class. We have created an object outside of the class. Always you have to create an object outside of the class. So we have created an object, class is getting closed over here. We have created an object outside of the class, and this is saying that the EMPAs is not accessible because it is private in nature. If it is private, you cannot access it outside. But others, if you see over here, you will be able to access all the values, which is 101, John, 2 lakh, 1 lakh. Now you can also change the value. You can also change the value. Let's say if you want to change the value of employee ID, how will you do that? Simple. How do you access the value? emp.empid equals to, you can make it as 201. What is meant by that? That means you have updated the emp value to from 101 to 201. And in this case, if you see over here, it is returning 101 over here, but after the updation, it is returning 201. Right? You can update all the values except emp salary. You cannot update employee salary over here. emp dot emp salary, emp increased salary. That is increased salary. Increased salary. If you want to update, let's say 5 lakh, 50,000, you cannot do that. Because why cannot you do that? Because cannot assign to increased salary because it is a read-only properties. That means it is read-only. You do not have permission to access. You do not have permission to update it or modify it. But if you just remove this read-only, you'll see that the error have been gone. If you again make it as read-only over here, the error will appear because it says that this is a read-only property, boss. You cannot update anything over here. You can just read the things. Example in newspaper. Newspaper is read-only. Right? If you want to change it originally, which will be impacted for all the people, you cannot do that. Right? So read-only is something which you only can read, but cannot update that, cannot modify that, cannot change that.
So
Okay,
Praveen, just one question over here. Like,
yes.
So whenever we are, already written console.log to any of the method or function, right? So why we are again declaring those things again? You are just trying to write the console.log once again because we have already declared those things inside the method and we have already initialized the values for those things, right? So this seems confusing for me every time. So is there any real-time scenarios happens?
You mean this one?
So yeah.
So we have
this
written
one we
this
have
one, and
already.
again I'm trying to write console.log over here.
Yeah, yeah.
That is what your question is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. This is just to show you people. This is not a use case that we'll be using.
Okay.
This is just to show you people that you can also access in this way.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
But
Yeah.
however you have written this is enough to say that how do you access this? We have we have accessed this inside the class, but outside the class we can access by using object that you have created. Just to show you, there is no use case for this that we have to always use a console.log.
Okay, got it then. Okay.
Okay,
But
probably
Praveen, yeah, sorry, good.
probably we might not use inside the real method, we might not use console.log, we might never use console.log, but just wanted to show you people that how do you access this outside of the class.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry,
Yes.
sorry. Praveen, can
Go
you
ahead.
update static value? I mean, sorry, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible now. Yes.
So can we update that static value? I mean, static, which you have defined earlier, right?
Static value that you have updated and that you have defined it over here, right?
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
try to see whether you will be able to update it or not. So let's say some limited over here. Okay. And then when you try to access this, how will you access this? It's by using the name. Okay. So employee dot cname, which is employee dot cname. Okay. What the value will get over here? Where it is coming from. So it is saying that okay, let me also print so that you'll understand it. So cname over here. Now, what is first thing that you have to understand is what is basically a static keyword over here. What is the use of static keyword? Right. So what do you understand by static keyword? Static keyword basically belongs to a class.
Class, yeah.
Static keyword basically belongs to a class which will only be accessible to a by using the class name. Okay.
Okay.
But static basically used to be a variable which is in general in most of the case. Whenever you have to change this, you basically have to change it inside the somewhere like static method or static variables. What happened in this case when you try to um, update it over here by saying employee.cname. Cname is a string which we have changed it to this one. And when you try to print it, basically it is giving us a value which is cname ltd over here. That means there are two ways in which you can basically change the value of the variable that you have inside the static. One is you can also update wherever you want to use, but how you have to update is by using the class name. Okay. Second is you can also update inside the static method as well. Whenever you are trying to create a static method, inside that also you can update the static variable that you have defined, or you can change the value of the variable. But whenever you have to change it, you simply have to use a key class name dot static. So you can define it over here, however you have given in the same way, which is cname dot ltd. Cname, which is ltd that we have changed the name over here.
Okay.
It will work in the same way, however you define or however you change to other. Only the difference is that you have to use a class name.
Yeah, Praveen, I have another question. This class employee has got two methods, right? One is greeting and one is other one, which you're showing.
Yes.
But the object, right, you have created in the other first method. If you scroll up a bit, the object, right? But my question is, can we share the object across another
ऑफिस
method
की
though?
मीटिंग खत्म करती हैं, थोड़ा सा काम बाकी है, नहीं तो कल दिक्कत हो जाएगी मुझे.
Hello?
तो अभी बैठ के करेंगे, फिर जाएंगे, ये क्लास
Hello?
खत्म कर खाना बनाएंगे.
Just a minute, let me. Can you please mute yourself, whoever is trying to speak? Okay.
Yeah, sorry about
So
that.
I understood your question. Your question. Your question is related to yes. So you can, if you want to use it for the other variable, you can also create another object over here as well. So let's say employee one, and then you can provide some values over here, which is let's say something, then some other value, having a value as having an age as let's say
Mhm. Mhm.
30, and let's say some values which is
The
2 lakh,
method in the greetings method.
some kind of it. Okay, you can also
Mhm.
do it in this way. So you can create basically n number of objects for the same class.
Oh, same class. Okay. But it doesn't
With
matter
different,
methods under any method it can be, right?
it
And
doesn't
number of
matter
objects
anything.
under any. Okay. And
Yes.
the variables which you have declared under the class is a member variables, right? The class variables. If you could scroll on the up.
Right, basically instance variable. So you can even access over here as well by saying
Okay.
emp1,
Got
all the uh, all the all the methods, all the variable you can access by using emp1 as well.
Instance variable and they're global. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's all. My question is you answered. Yeah. Thank you,
Okay.
Praveen.
So you can create n number of, and all the methods and properties will also be accessible to those variables and methods as well.
Yes,
So
Praveen.
this Praveen, so this
Yes.
private thing we can access only inside the constructor and the function of the class, right?
Yes.
We cannot access outside class. Only inside the constructor and function we can access.
Yes. Functions, properties, you can access all except the private one.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. So private can only be accessed inside constructor, not even inside the function, right?
No, private, you can access it inside the function as well. We have
Okay.
used it emp name, right? EMPAs, right? So you can access it inside the class anywhere,
Okay,
but not
outside
outside of the class.
Okay.
Private variable, you can access it inside anywhere inside the class. Now, when we will be declaring a locator for so and so space, let's say we are working on login page, and whatever the locators will be related to login page will declare inside a login page class, and we'll make it as a private because that is only part of the login page. You cannot access it outside of the login page, but inside the login page, you are free to use anywhere. Inside
And
the
the
function, outside the
yeah,
function, inside the constructor, outside the constructor, anywhere you can access that.
yeah, I was about to bring this protected, right? Like where we use for inheritance concepts, like the variables. If we, I don't know whether we use here in the framework the protected modifier, right?
That is basically not required, but we'll see it out again at the time of going through with the framework.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And this read only, there is no restriction, right? We can access it outside the class also.
I'm so sorry. Can you please repeat?
This read only, you can access it outside the class also, right?
Read only, you can access it anywhere. Read only, just read only property. It is not private. You can access it anywhere. But only the thing is that you cannot update it. Okay.
So Praveen, like you have
Yes.
created one more object with the employee one, right? And you
Right.
have initialized that object with the new values. So
Yes.
whenever I am calling any of the value, I mean any of the properties through from the constructor with the new object, so it should be printed with the new values, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So if you see inside this, it have been printed as with a new value, whatever the value that we have given over here, which is 501, 030, and 205 something. So you can see over here that this is printing us a value with 501, 030, and 205.
Okay.
Okay, with the changed value, whatever the value that you have used over here. Okay. So that's about the class. It is like, you might have understood the concept over here, but what you have to do is you have to basically practice it out.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
Right. You just try to create a class, any class. Probably you can take an example of creating a car class. Car can have a multiple properties. Car can have a um, multiple methods like start car, stop car, and some kind of things. You can just try to declare it out and access it, and you'll understand how does it work in general.
And if we declare a variable as static, it means that still as all static belong to a class, right? Methods or
Yes,
variables.
all static
Okay.
things. If you have just
That's
used
the
a static, that means that
Hmm.
belongs to the class and you have to access by using the class name itself.
class name itself. Okay. Because that's an interview question because people can ask, right?
Right.
And
Okay.
one more thing, we can declare constructor, right? And we have two methods, right, in a class. But that's what if you scroll up, right, you have built a constructor there, right? Like, it's that's okay, right? Constructor.
Right. Constructor we have to create if you are trying to assign any value over here, trying to initialize any value over here, then you have to create a constructor to
That's
initialize the
important. Right?
value of a variable.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
So constructor uses only to initialize the values, right?
Right, right. Use of the constructor is just to initialize the value of the variable. And when will it get initialized? Unless and until you create an object, it will not get initialized. As soon as you create an object, all the value will get initialized over here.
Okay, so while creating an object, whatever the values that we are
Right,
passing as a parameter,
right.
those will be seated over here.
Correct, correct. However you see over here in this way. When we
Yeah.
create an
And
object for this,
yeah.
all the value will go and sit it inside this argument.
And to create a constructor, it has to be with the keyword constructor and assign those values, right? EID,
Yes,
ename.
yes. It
Okay.
should not be the same name as a class name. It should be the name as a keyword as a constructor keyword.
Constructor keyword and this
Yeah.
dot. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
And this is for JavaScript only, but other programming languages it's different for
This
Java,
for
but
TypeScript and JavaScript both.
JavaScript constructor, yeah. But for I think the other language it needs to call by class name. That's what he said, right? I was getting confused.
Right, right,
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
right. Now, other day I was talking about JavaScript way of declaration of a class, right? So let's see in terms of a JavaScript as well. In terms of a JavaScript, everything will be same. Let's create one name. I'll say it as emp.js.
Praveen,
Okay.
I have one question before you move on.
Yes.
Yeah, so you said that this private variable we cannot access access outside the class, right? So
Yes.
it is included in the method employee information, which we call outside of the class. So that is allowed.
That is allowed. So that you have
Okay.
used it inside the function. People will not understand what kind of value that you have called over here. So people
Okay.
will still not be able to understand that what is this EMP name, EMP is. Whatever the value that you have given, that will get initialized. You can call it inside the function, but you cannot directly call those variables and methods if it is a private that outside of the class.
Okay.
But those methods and variable you can call it by using a class name. Sorry, by using that inside the function name, and
Function,
using
yeah.
the function you can basically print those variables and methods.
Okay.
Okay.
And Praveen,
Now
that
let
static greeting is a function, right? So that we can call using the class name here.
yes, yes, you
And
have to call
outside of this class, we are able to call that one as it is a static.
static keyword. You will be a static variable and method you will be able to call anywhere
Okay, okay,
by using the class name.
okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's on the same context, Praveen. Like you had like dollar sign, right, in the greeting method. If you scroll at the bottom, dollar employee dot cname. That's where you're calling, right? Like static
Right, right. Yes,
variable.
yes.
That's what the syntax is. Dollar we need to put right every time.
Why do we put dollar?
Yeah, that's the thing I was wondering, like, to call it because I understand
You
employee is a
have to
class name.
understand the string concept that we have gone through. To make it
Right.
parameterized, make the string as a parameterized, we use a dollar inside the square inside the curly braces. We have to call the variable that you have declared. Whenever
So
you
this is
make your
template
your string as a
template literal,
parameterized
right?
string, there we have to use like this. That is also inside a backtick option.
Yeah. So this is template literal, right, Praveen?
Right. Now I have created one class over here, which I'll just give the name as EMP. Now this is in the form of JavaScript. Let's try to understand how do we create in the form of JavaScript. This is in the form of JavaScript. Okay. We have created a method which we have given, we have created a class which I have given the name as EMP. This is in the form of JavaScript over here. So in terms of a JavaScript, private keyword is not allowed. You cannot declare any variable as a private. You can use a static, and you also cannot use a read-only variable as well in terms of a JavaScript. Okay, one thing. Second thing that you have declared over here, these variables that you have declared over here are not mandatory in terms of JavaScript. But if you go and comment all these value in terms of a TypeScript, you'll get an error saying that this is not available. Okay, so in terms of a TypeScript, these value that you provide at the class level are mandatory, whereas in terms of JavaScript, these are not mandatory. You can simply create the variable inside the constructor itself. Okay. Now at the time of other things are all same. Others are all same. Others, you can create a static variable, you can create a static method, but these are not required over here in terms of JavaScript. You can define it, there will be no harm in that, but it is not mandatory in terms of creation of a JavaScript. Okay, only the difference is that second is private and read-only property, read-only keywords are not applicable in JavaScript. In JavaScript, everything will be a public in nature. Okay, and in terms of TypeScript, you can also use it. So that's basically about the class and the last concept that we have in terms of TypeScript. Okay, and I would expect you people to go through with basically go through with the coding exercise that I have given inside our folder. You should be able to see the coding exercise over there, right inside this folder. So just go through with that and try to complete it out like at least 20 values, at least like 1 to 20 or 1 to 10, 1 to 10 at least over there from by just going through with this, and you will be able to see that you'll basically get the confidence in terms of the practical, which is in the form of how do you answer the or how do you start writing the programming interviews and so on. If you practice it out from code 1 to code 25, that will be enough to crack any programming interviews in terms of both JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay, so just try to practice it out. Plus theoretical question also I have given inside the same folder. Inside this you'll go, and inside this you'll see like JavaScript programming questions. There are some theoretical questions that generally being asked in terms of the interviews. Those are also available over here. So you can also go through and practice it out, or like try to check it out whether you are able to understand the things or not. And apart from that, for the playwright automation, I have also given some exercises over there, something that we can utilize for the playwright questions that I've shared. That you have to go through later, but whatever we have completed in other session related to JavaScript and TypeScript, just go through with the coding exercise and the theoretical questions as well. If you have any kind of questions, let me know, and we'll discuss in our session as well.
Praveen, would you be able to provide key for those questions from the OneDrive, right?
Sorry?
The answers, right? If we're like looking.
Answers also have been given inside the same.
Oh, inside the same?
Yes.
If you could go back to the handout.
You'll get also the question answered as well.
Answer. It's not there yet, right? You have not provided us the answers.
For playwright and for coding exercise, I've already provided. For few of the questions that are there in terms of a theoretical, I do not think that you require because we have discussed everything in detail But in case you require, I can update it over there as
Sure.
well.
Yeah, thank you. We need it. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Okay. So that's basically about the concept that we have in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript. And from next session onwards, which will be tomorrow, we'll be starting with a playwright, where we'll I'll just let me show you what are the things that we'll be covering up from the tomorrow's session.
And when does the class starts? 9 p.m. IST, right? Because
Yes.
9 p.m.
Yes. Okay. So I've also pushed the code. You can check it out over there. From the next session onwards, we'll be starting with a playwright things, where we'll go through with first thing like how do we set up the playwright installation, understand the playwright configurations, and so on. That will be starting in the next session. And then again, Wednesday will be covering up few of the core concept of the playwright. And I'll basically be on the leave for a couple of days. In those leave period, you can practice it out, the coding exercise that I have given inside the folder. Okay, do not set idle on those 7 days of period or 5 days of whatever the period that it is there. Do not sit idle, just practice it out, the coding exercise, and let me know if you are facing any kind of issues over there. Okay. Any question for now?
Praveen, when will
You are
you
converting.
back from your leave?
Sorry.
So when will you back from your leave?
So we'll again be like after Wednesday, we'll be having the session on 8th of May.
Okay. Yeah. And I think today actually some personal reasons I couldn't join. I last 30 minutes only I joined. Could you please share the link so that tomorrow I'll go through that complete class for today?
Okay, sure.
Thank you very much.
So
Praveen,
Praveen,
this ESC command is not working for converting the class to .ps file to JS file.
I'm somehow not able to hear. I believe like I have some problem with my laptop. Not sure. I can please repeat once again.
No, you are creating the .emp.js separate file, right? It is not
Right,
possible to
right.
convert TSC file, TSC command.
Yes, you can convert that. You can simply use it as tsc space employee.ts.
Okay.
tsc will compile the file to from TypeScript to JavaScript.
Right. Okay. So whatever the class or whatever the objects, everything is converted, right?
Yes.
There is no.
Yes.
Okay.
hello, I'm audible, sir.
Yes.
Uh, Hello. Before you will start a playwright, okay? So whenever we are come across with an object, methods, classes, and all the things with that which we have already studied in the play means TypeScript. So can you means that the things which are coming to the playwright. So could you please that explain again now? Since that these things we are already studied in in TypeScript, and this is applied over here and all.
So as soon as we'll be going through the playwright, wherever we'll be using whatever the things, you'll also see that we'll be utilizing whatever we have learned till now in terms of TypeScript.
Yeah. That's thank you.
Okay. Yes, great. Okay, so that's it then. Let me see if I have anything inside the chat. Do we have? So in our automation framework, we would be using class, right? Yes. Is there any way to initialize the properties? In properties, we have initialized inside the constructor itself, right? And this was from because all okay, right. So that's from 1st to 8th. Is that yeah? From 1st to 7th, 8th will have a session. 1st May. Okay, so that's it then in our session today, and we'll continue again tomorrow. And from tomorrow.